You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives. Welcome back, everybody. Another wonderful episode of Practicing People's Podcast. The exciting piece is this is season 2, episode 1, and I am so incredibly grateful and appreciative to be having a conversation with the co-host, Jordan White here, and we've decided specifically to have it just be us today and really come from a place where the idea of Practicing People's Podcast came from and the origins that they exist in, which was just us having conversations about life and the exploration of that and everything that was going on in our lives. So Jay, my brother, so good to see you. How are you, my man?
Yeah, good to be back with you, brother. It's lots happened since season 1 and those 14 episodes, and you got some recent exciting news too, man. So it's just cool to reflect back on our friendship, literally that started in our childhood, and grow up together and stay connected, through this podcast. But more specifically, like make the intention to stay connected, in our friendship here. So I'm doing well, man. Taking it a day at a time. It's interesting times we're living in, that's for sure. But yeah, just really focused on being a man of value, like kind of what we're gonna focus on, I'd say, throughout this season, and really at least call back to quite a bit.
Yeah, I certainly feel as if something you're alluding to about this space and time that we're living in. It is today, April 18th of 2025. We are in interesting times in America and American politics, I guess. And just in, politics aside, I think that the thing that you're alluding to being a man of value and gender aside, I really do believe that a person of value is so important. But when we start to talk about a man of value and what that means more than ever, it's incredibly important to have conversations that bring more value to light. I've always said this to you, and you know this. I far less care about what the Denver Nuggets are doing these days or what the Denver Broncos are doing or who they're trading away, as opposed to how you're doing and how you're showing up in your life and creating value in your life, and as well as mine. The mirror shows to myself. And we really decided to take a journey, at the tail end of the pandemic, to tap into that side of our friendship. And thus far, it has proven to be one of the most significantly life transforming journeys I've ever taken. Something you alluded to just a bit ago was that I just got engaged to the love of my life. And I'm not sure that I would have been able to meet that moment with the same type of peace and patience that is required of it had I not known you or been in the groups that we are, where we choose to explore our fears, our strengths, our assets, our biases. So I honestly, I thank you for that, bro. And it's really cool because I really feel like a different man these days. From the time leading up to the proposal, getting the ring, and talking to her parents and talking to my parents and expressing to them what the next journey of my life was, that I was really cementing certain things into place. There was a lot of peace that like existed in that space, where sometimes there can be some nervousness or anxiousness. And again, I attribute a lot of that to you, a little bit to myself. Obviously, I'm the person walking this path, but you
So
definitely you put a mirror on me that helped me become a man, and I really mean that. You know, I thank you, and I hope that men have friendships like this where their friends are shining lights on them and asking them to become more, not do anything more, to become more. And
Hmm,
you've asked that of me, and I've certainly taken that challenge to heart. So thank you for that.
man. Yeah, starting off with the feels here, bro. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about too, just I think it was the day after, and we FaceTimed, the engagement, and it's something you can just see, as far as like that the love between you two, and just like the uh, both of your spirits were just alive, right, and feeling just the power of that moment. And I think that's a lot of what we talk about as men of value too, is like really leaning into that. A lot of us are, a lot of men in particular. And yeah, like you said, not discounting other genders out there, right? But like we know our experience, so that's what we can speak to best. And a lot of men tend to have guidance around not feeling into emotion, and not meeting those moments with your full self, and not doing it um, in ways that show that you're vulnerable and open. And what I heard in that, and just even watching you two navigate your relationship, and meet the moment that you're at now. I mean, that's what it takes, is being an emotionally intelligent man, and like really leaning into love, and the scariness of it, and the uncertainty of it, right? And there's a lot of, I think, information out there, and kind of misguidance of, you need to be so sure about everything, and you need to control it, and you need to dominate what happens. Like, well, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a very loving approach to things. So, I mean, it's a lot of what we've both evolved into, what I mean? Like, so sure, I'll take, some of the credit, CJ, but this is a co-created brotherhood. It's a co-created friendship. It's a co-created experience. And I'm just really, really proud of both of us for navigating life the way we have, especially you being out in LA, where there's that's an interesting city, right? That's an interesting town, and it could kind of push down on the realness and the authenticity of what we like to live by.
It's an ego trap, bro. And a lot of what I was fighting up until this moment was my ego.
Hmm.
And, one of the things that you spoke about that I want to speak about here today, and I hope a lot of um, gentlemen in particular listen to this point. There was a point that you made about vulnerability, and we've spoken about this. Vulnerability is absolutely a strength and an asset. And I also want to encourage people, that is why friendships that become brotherhoods or sisterhoods are so important. And I think that our female counterparts are much better at this than us. But the vulnerability that you speak of, I was curious about if there was a stronger word than vulnerability. And the word that came simply was authenticity. And I've realized that in spaces like this, in spaces where men are feeling anxious and nervous about being vulnerable, and perhaps those are spaces that are unknown to us, and you can even be friends with a guy for 20 years and still feel vulnerable and not be able to tell them something. But because I have had the courage to come up to vulnerability so many times, I now see that as my authentic nature. I now know that if I was to come to Jordan and cry, perhaps I could feel vulnerable, but all I'm really truly in the fullest essence doing is being incredibly authentic with you. If you're able to show both the fun, the smiles, the laughs, the jokes, and also the other side of it. I can't tell you how many times I have had tears in my eyes speaking to Jordan, both of places of gratitude and places of weakness. And I've never really felt vulnerable with you. If I think you're understanding what I'm saying, I've always felt like I'm being myself and he appreciates me for that. And that's been such strength for me to gather and continue on. It's like a practice so that I can be more authentic in front of a stranger and they can see if I'm getting tears in my eyes when I talk about Paula and I talk about our engagement and I'll be talking to a stranger and I start to well up with tears, but those tears come from such an appreciation of the love that I share with her and they can see that. Sure, I think there are boundaries of vulnerability, of authenticity, to especially when you're running into a stranger. But anything that I share with someone really comes from authentic place. And this, not just you, but Andrew, who's our producer, Greg, who's a buddy of ours, Chris, who's a buddy of ours, and our men's group. I've had so many moments of true, genuine authenticity with you guys, speaking on the best parts of life and the most frustrating parts of life, and it has allowed me to sort of navigate vulnerabilities with much more strength, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you're maybe pointing at a little bit here is like people's relationship with that word, and I just looked it up. I mean, the first thing that comes up, susceptible, wow, susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm, right? So, kind of implying that we're open to something harming us is the definition of that word, at least the first one that pops up. And, just thinking about people's relationship to it. So, for you to shift from, vulnerability to authenticity, that kind of that releases some of that, um yeah, that potential harm that maybe we uh try to be aware of, or think about when we hear that word, right? And when we switch to being authentic, I mean, sure, there can be some real vulnerable potential there, but it's rooted in a place of realness, and it's rooted in a place of, like, the human experience. The fact that we do have emotions. I, it's so fascinating to me when people say I don't do emotions, or like, I don't have them. Like, well, if you're human, we all have an emotional state. Sure, yours may be kind of altered a little bit, but if we didn't have emotions, then we'd be, I don't know, we'd be a robot, or I don't know, from somewhere else maybe. So I think leaning into even, yeah, just the emotional intelligence. I think we've touched on that a little bit too, and um, in our men's group, really just exploring the range of emotions that us as humans feel, and that's okay. Like, that's part of the human experience. That's part of what helps you, uh, yeah, like, kind of live fully, right? And we rob ourselves of so many, um, real and authentic experiences by pushing stuff down and by suppressing it and by, um, thinking that that's what it means to be a strong man. Like, no, we, at least I think it's safe to say that we think being strong is leaning into that and exploring that with curiosity and being able to connect with our partners, your future wife, my wife, Andrew's wife, Greg's wife, Chris's partner, right? Like, in an authentic and just real way. I mean, and that's stuff you can't fabricate. That's stuff you can't manipulate. You've got to let yourself go there.
That's the point. You look, and you said you got to let yourself go there, and you got to give yourself permission to go there. Because I even think about something when you were talking about that. I realized what took me so long to appreciate myself was the beauty of who I am. So being biracial, there's this odd juxtaposition of being um, too black, too white, not white enough, not black enough, and vice versa. And that meant sort of having to code switch sometimes. So being able to listen to rap music and then all of a sudden, uh, I'm trying to think of like an artist, like just because it's in the news, like a Katy Perry song comes on, right? Like both can be equally enjoyable. without having the justification to need some sort of place or platform to stand in that says that this is right or wrong in the sense of it's emasculating or this or that. The
Mm-hmm.
more I can embrace my fullness, the fuller and richer both my femininity and masculinity can be, without one being able to, the pendulum being able to swing back the other way. The disharmony, the imbalance will start to bleed into other parts of your life. And here I am now, in my 37th year of life, fully appreciating and embracing so much, being able to have my men's group and then being able to spend my time with Paula, being able to listen to a classical track and being able to go work out and listen to rap or whatever it is. I mean, and these are small nuanced states, but to your point, the more we shun true and authentic nature of ourselves, the longer the disservice of authenticity is delayed. To be fully authentic at this stage of my life and always growing into a more authentic nature feels so good, man. I can't tell you how long I felt in life like I had to be or do something, especially here in Hollywood. And it's not to be such a stereotype, but there's a longing sense when people come out here sometimes to Hollywood to be somebody or to do something grand that can show everybody else something. And I really wonder if it was when my relationship with Paula began to sprout that I realized I'm enough, and she could continue to support me, but she helped me find a truer sense of myself without needing to impress anybody else. And it was so refreshing, and I think that's what led to so much peace in the decision of the engagement, and understanding that that doesn't mean that me and Paula don't go through disagreements or misalignments of situations, and I'm able to communicate through that because I have an authentic voice to express to her what it is I'm feeling. I think so many times we're projecting on people because we don't know how to express our misalignments.
Mm-hmm. Amen. One, to point back to something you talked about, yeah, kind of the feminine and masculine side. I mean, you and I talk about yin and yang. I mean, I'd imagine the audience at this point recognizes that we both have more, yeah, like a spiritual side to us, right? And I love, kind of that ancient wisdom, stuff rooted in uh, since man has been around. And I mean, that's the idea, is that a lot of men kind of stay in on one side, right? In the masculine side, and like make a strong effort to do that. And again, like kind of what I hear you saying is that leaning into both sides of us, right? And the wholeness of us, if we don't do that, we're kind of hijacking like what life has to offer and what being a human has to offer. And the same thing happens up in our mind too. Right? We have our left hemisphere and our right hemisphere. A lot of people in general, outside of men, but just people in general stay in the left side of the brain, which uh, to paint a picture, right? Like it's more like the library. And and what happens when you go to the library? It's organized, it's categorized. It likes having little buckets of things. It's got a number where you can go and find exactly what you're looking for. Right? So it's this very logical, linear space. We forget that we have this whole other right side that's aligned with intuition and wisdom, and more importantly, like our soul, right? And our humanness. So, right, like we can rob ourselves of so much life by trying to be something that we think we need to be because society said so, right? And it's more so, this is where self-leadership is just so fun, right? And like this is where the power of it really comes into play, is when you've got to answer to yourself. And if you're the best version of yourself, you have a lot to be proud of, right? If you wake up and do your best every day, doesn't mean that there isn't more to learn, but we've embraced that, right? And like that's I think we're the realization we've come to. And there's going to be plenty of bumps in the road as you move through your engagement, and then your marriage, and then potentially becoming a dad one day, right? Like there's gonna be more bumps in the road, and that's great. Good, right? There's more to learn.
Bro, the what you just spoke about, it was so funny. I'm so glad that this bled into this. There was something that I heard, and it was look more to inspired actions versus anxious doings.
Hmm.
And I think what you just spoke about is so poignant in the sense that I think a lot of humans, uh, gender aside, age aside, there's so much, and well, maybe not children. I think children lean a lot more into inspired action than anxious doings. But as we get older, there's sort of this set pattern of things that we think we need to get done or do during the day to make it feel like a worthy day. And especially now when I can't tell you how many things I see in a day, where whether it's a fitness influencer or just a social media influencer, I start my day at 4:30, have breakfast by 5. I'm in the cold plunge by 5:30. From 5:30 to 6:30, I'm meditating, and there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong, because there is no necessary right. However, I would ask them if they're inspired by that or they're just doing that. Does it truly give you inspiration to do those things, or are you just anxiously doing those things to fill the time slots of your day? Because for myself, as I speak about this, I know a lot of my actions can be done anxiously just for the fact that I feel like I need to check boxes in the day. And sometimes my inspired action comes from my rest, or comes from periods of trying something new, or placing myself in uncomfortable places where I'm not doing the norm. And I'm thinking of ways and new ways of creatively inspiring myself. And that's where a lot of my best has lived. The reason why I came out to pursue a creative field such as the one I did was through inspired action. And it was intuitive, as you spoke to. And there are times when glimpses of your, I call it your godliness, yourself, your oneness with something that makes you feel that you are connected to any and all, like speaks to you. And I trusted my intuition to take a jump out here that led to the unfolding of where I'm at now. And in between that, have there been moments of difficulty? Absolutely. But there have been moments of sheer and utter greatness that has no attachment to any material, no monetary, anything. Friendships that have sprung up. Like the friendship that came from me and Greg that now you get to share with Greg, and now you've been able to have like your own conversations with him. My friendships that have sprung with Andrew and
Yeah.
Chris, all of these things through this wonderful journey, but it was not in doing. It was inspired actions and meeting in a men's group that's been going on for a year and some change now, that nobody forced us to go to, that we've missed some cycles of, but still we kept showing up because we were inspired to be there. And even on the days there was like this sort of, I got men's meeting tonight. I can't tell you, those are the best times I had. I came in being like, oh, geez, I got men's meeting tonight. I'll be back, babe. I came back downstairs and she's like, what drug are you on? It's like, I'm life. I'm living. I'm getting to hear my boys speak about where they're at in life.
Yeah, man, we're both smiling. It's you can't game that, right? Like you can't. There's no formula for that, and I think that's where so many people are misguided in today's world. I mean, we go to Google for so much, or go to Chat GPT for so much. How do I do this? How do I do that? It's like what I hear you saying is a kind of a spin on AI. It's authentic inspiration, is what that stands for.
Did you
What
just
are
come up?
you? Yeah, and this is what happens.
Woo!
What are you authentically inspired by? Let that guide you in your how and what you do, and how you're showing up. And to emphasize what you've emphasized already, it's less about doing, it's more about being. Like being more and being less based on where you want to go in life and the things that matter to you. And this, for example, it's top of mind, like this engagement, right? Like that's a be more side of you, right? Like you're calling on yourself to be more, to step into this, this next chapter, man. And that, other parts of life definitely call for that. It's less about, yeah, like gaming it and doing the right thing. It's more about being, and yeah, being open to the ride. So kind of back to the vulnerability, quote unquote, being open to, yeah, like some things may bump me along the way, but that's a learning opportunity. That's a growing opportunity. So yeah, like approach that with open arms.
Yeah, there was something to your point. My sayings, I go through them quite often. Um, I told Paula one that's been sticking with me quite often lately is the harder you chase it, the further it runs. And so much of life can feel like there's this sort of attainment to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And quite honestly and quite literally, a lot of the attainment that we aspire to is truly never enough. There will always be a next and a next and a next.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of that bleeds into my career. It's wanting the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it seems like the more I chase that, the further away that goal seems. And anytime I've sort of chosen to release this notion that anything's going to happen, and quite often it's so closely aligned with giving up. And I don't know if it's necessarily giving up, and I defer to your wisdom in some sense of I don't really know if it's giving up versus releasing my control over things. And that's truly when a lot of my best of my life has taken over. It's taken control in this divine way that doesn't exist in any action that I've ever put. Me showing up is enough. The effort that I place in is enough. But this never ending treadmill of a carrot in front of me that can quite literally never be reached. And society's great. Society is great at giving us the marketing to show us what can make our lives better.
Mm-hmm.
And not much of it points back to an internal state. It always says, buy this car, you'll have this thing. Or even take this supplement, you will have the peace that you seek, or the calm that you seek, or this will give you the aesthetic body that you seek. And it's all external. And much of what we speak about is so intrinsic, internal to human nature, the soul that we've connected to. And that is why I'm so glad that when we talk in the men's group, 80 to 90% of what we talk about is soul based, mind based in a sense of what our mind can tell us, but soul inclined. And that's when you talk about, through finding value in life, you're not going to find value in external things. You're going to find value derived from self that might lead you to external gatherings of sorts, but there's nothing that you can find outside of yourself that's going to bring enough value to yourself. And you have, and that group has presented that mirror to me so many times in my I remember when me and P first started dating, the rocks in the road, the bumps in the road can be applied. And some of the things that we would come up against, I would be like, man, Jordan, P, it's like this, man, and it's she's doing this, and it's this, and it's like, what you're telling me everything that's outside of you, my friend. What is it that's inside of you that it's speaking to or pointing to or triggering? And I would keep trying to deflect, defer. But let's focus on that first. Let's focus on outside of CJ. As your friend, I can only truly focus on where you're at because that's the person that I'm trying to help in this moment. And that's what's so valuable to me about our friendship. You've only ever pointed the mirror back to me in a way that was truly trying to find and show me the loving parts of myself that were either unloved or unseen at that moment.
Yeah. No, And I've been uh, fortunate enough to discover coaching, and work with a coach before I came on, right? And that's much of what it is. Like, it's referred to as kind of a dynamic mirror. So yeah, to go back to what you're talking about, like kind of this idea of um, reflection and to that person. Oftentimes people will come to a coaching conversation like, guess what this person did? They did this, they did that. I'm like, well, as much as I'd love to coach XYZ, you can send them my contact info, but it's you and me in this conversation. So, and you and I both know from self leadership, one of the very first core principles that is taught is the idea of accountability as a skill, right?
Mm,
And to define that for listeners, right? We see accountability as not a burdensome thing, right? You hear that word, and a lot of people have a burdensome relationship with accountability.
mm,
And what's the first thing that comes to mind? Who's accountable for this? Someone needs to be held accountable. It's like, that's not very inspiring, and that's
mhm,
not, likely someone's not going to immediately raise their hand to, own up to something like that. So the flip is looking at it as a skill that you can develop. So, what's your ability to take into account your choices, your actions that you took or didn't? Right? How often do we kind of sweep things under the rug, hope they just go away, um, etc. That have contributed to the reality today. So if someone's in a struggling partnership, or if someone is in a role at work that they don't love, having that skill level of taking into account, okay, I made some choices and I took some action that have contributed. Not saying it's full ownership, but there's part of it that was, like led by you, right? So before, and that's really the first step of freedom, is being able to look through that accountability lens without blame, shame, or guilt. And sometimes that takes some time, man. Like, we've all talked about, like doing the work and getting therapy or working with a coach, or um, you know processing some of these things that we've held on to for a long time that have been disruptive to our well-being. And that's what we mean by value, right? What value contributes to your well-being? Value contributes to goodness. Value contributes to your quality of life. So these external things that you brought up, getting the bigger house, getting the cool car, getting the bump in pay, I mean, those are all, sure, they can contribute in a way to quality of life, but are you waking up and looking in the mirror and proud of who that person is? Like, that's the
mm,
shit that matters at the end
mm.
of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and I was thinking about so much of what you presented to me with accountability was an awareness of how much I was either, like, let's use the analogy of a room. I was either taking my messes and placing them underneath the bed, or pushing
Mhm.
all the stuff in the closet, or, sweeping it under the rug, whatever the analogy might be. That cleans the space technically, but after a while of doing that, there's going to be no more for that stuff to go, and the perceived external appearance of clean will start to bleed into everything, and then you've got one of the most unsavory places you can live, because you not only do you have the stuff that now shows, you have years worth of things that are now needing to be accounted for. And again, it takes time.
Yeah.
Patience is a virtue that can really, Otis, my cat, has taught me what patience looks like. But patience up for yourself too. I think that's where that weird thing about the drive, the anxious doings, it's like this sort of like beat yourself up into a better person place. Like, come on, you POS, you can do this, CJ, be better. Like, how could you not be better? The guilt, shame, and fear place that we think is this some sort of motivational place that we think is going to drive us to the next thing. And again, I think that's actually what it's going to do. It's going to drive you to the next thing. But are we trying to get to a next thing, or are we trying to place ourselves in a position of peace? That is why when I was so aligned in a place to get to a point of an engagement, which is a cementing of something, that the peace I felt was almost like it was so unfamiliar because I didn't realize all the processes that I had gone through to get myself to that position. I was like, oh my gosh, like not in a sense of pride but proud of myself
Hmm.
for knowing and ever knowing that this is what peace can feel like. There can be moments when I'm out of alignment with it, certainly, but to be in alignment with peace in moments of that require your your intuition and your decision making to be assured, I guess, was wonderful. And it wasn't anything that wasn't so new that I didn't know what it was, but it was so unfamiliar in such grand decisions. But that's why I was like, oh my gosh, you're making one of your biggest life decisions ever and you feel so much peace. It was incredibly freeing, if that makes sense. It was incredibly freeing to know that I trusted myself that much. And trust is a huge part of this.
Yeah.
Trust in yourself to be accountable to things. I'm sure that in your coaching there's another thing that you talk about, which goes along with accountability. It's responsibility, and being able to be responsible to everything that you speak about was incredibly gratifying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of plug that into accountability, looking at responsibility as a skill too. So, what's your ability to respond to what is the current moment in a way that creates value? Right. And you and I are both guided by the central question and throughout our days, what choice can I make and action can I take in this moment to create the greatest net value? And that's what responsibility is all about. But we can't be response able. We can't, or we limit our ability to respond to these moments if we haven't dealt with accountability. If we haven't recognized that, okay, there are some choices and actions that I did take that, contributed to this mess, whether it's a big one or a small one. And I'm at peace with that. Okay, great. Now that I've taken into account objectively, like an accountant, for example, an accountant isn't going to sit there and judge the numbers that show up when they're doing their end of year report. They're just they're just presenting the numbers. Here's what it is. All right. So having that mentality and getting to that place again, right? Like doing the work to get to that place, that allows us to then be free, like you said, and step into being more response able. Our ableness to respond to moments becomes more clear, and there's more space. Right? You and I have talked about, the cupboards in the house as an analogy, or even tending your garden. Right? It's one thing to just clip out the pestering weeds and stuff like that, but until you get to the root, and until you actually address what has that weed continuing to pop up in your life, that metaphorical, yeah, like weed, then it's going to be tough to make progress, right? And you're going to kind of feel stuck in a cycle. And you and I both believe in that too. Like the same lesson that we're meant to learn is going to show up until we learn it.
What as a life coach and mentor and steward of others who come to you for uh, advice and your tutelage, like what is it that most often the average person is up against that continues to derail or make their progress something that is delayed or deferred to a different time? Is it their guilt, shame, and fear that they hold? Is it their inability to hold themselves accountable or responsible? What do you come up against most often with somebody that's um, struggling?
Hmm. I mean, it ranges, and I think that's where um, a lot of people ask me what I do,
Mhm.
and like that's gonna range on. the conversation I'm having, because CJ's one of one, Jordan's one of one. Every single human on this planet is one of one that has their own experiences in life that have shaped how they see themselves in the world. I mean, that's just the truth, right? So where I see people commonly, when we're first doing some work together, and that's why we start with accountability, is yeah, like kind of pointing to the external. Right? If this person would just do this thing a little bit differently, then life would be great. Our relationship would be great. Or if I just got this $20,000 raise that I deserve, then I'd be fine. Right? It's like, okay, well, what if that was laid down in front of you tomorrow? Are you saying like that way of thinking is just gonna magically go away? No.
Mhm,
Right? So
mhm.
our mind is a computer, right? And it runs applications based on the left side that we talked about, based on its library of categorized things and putting them into boxes and labeling them. And we react to that unless we step into consciousness, right? And that's what this work is all about. As you know, it's making more conscious decisions that create value, not only for you, but for everyone and everything involved. Right. So, to get back to your question, I mean, like the main yeah, place to start is that level of accountability and the potential depth of that, right? Because again, like there's sometimes some things that happen in our childhood, or something that we've been carrying around, some baggage we've been carrying around for a while, that it can be tough to let go of the things that hurt us the most. Which you and I love Michael Singer, and he has a little more of a lighthearted approach to it. But it's like, why hold on? Why hold on to the things that hurt you the most? I mean, like, how many people do we hear about? Guess what this person did to me? Guess what that person did to me? And just kind of go through life as this victim. Right? It's like, well, if you're not enjoying that, please help me understand why you're hanging on to that. And yes, I get that's easier said than done, but recognize that we have the choice, right? And that's what that central question is all about. What choice can I make? Stepping into freedom of choice versus being a victim of life circumstance. I mean, that's a choice in itself.
Man, when you talk about that, I think it's a very simple thing to think on, but the pendulum, there's not a chance that many humans, by and large, give the same weight that they give that thing, that trauma, that trigger, that thing that is that thought they've had since they were 7, 8 years old, 21 in a bad breakup, 30 and lost a job, or whatever it is. That thing that always does that. There's never the same side of thinking of the thing that you always thought would never happen that came true, or the goodness of life, or the heart of life, that nature that you don't really give that same thing. And for whatever reason, we love to dig ourselves our own graves of sorts, because that's how you die. You stop living life when you continue to default to the past as the predictor of the future. And your point, being able to be more conscious of your choices directly affects your present and your future. And the necessity to have it be something so grand as to be something tangible that you can see, touch, taste, feel. That's not always where the beauty in life lies. It's the feeling that you get, or the understanding, or the knowledge that you've attained by realizing this is not perfect, but that's never been the goal. I think a lot of my hindrance to my growth has been looking for perfection in myself, in my partner, in my financial situations, in my friendships. Nobody's perfect, self included. And to look for that, you are ever going to be wandering around this world empty and hollow,
Yeah.
because you just won't find it. I think in terms of friendships, I'm not sure how many downs we have had, but I know it's not perfect, but I am so thankful that I have been able to be aligned with you for as long as I have on this journey. And thank the Lord that there was this intuitive nature that we were both wanting to seek something beyond just like again, like sup, dope. That's cool. That's cool. All right, we'll chop it later, man. How you check out this new album? There's so much more beyond that.
Yeah.
And it's scary because I don't even know how our our conversations began to expand past that light. I think we just again the T word trusted it,
Hmm.
openness. Perhaps it was a tad bit of vulnerability in the beginning, but like there had to be an authentic seed that said, "Do you want to explore this? I'm reading this. I'm meditating this. Hey, what about meditation? I mean, I could try it. I mean, again, the first meditation I did with you, incredibly awkward in the sense of it was us on a FaceTime at 6:30 in the morning where I was living, quiet. You mean we're just gonna sit and listen to Andy from Headspace talk and we're just gonna sit here and find space for each other? I mean, yeah, sort of. You're gonna find space for yourself, but I'm gonna be with you. All right. Day one, day two, day 365. I think I'm going to start doing it by myself, Jay. I love that for you. I
Hmm.
love that for you. You know, that kind of teensy bit of vulnerability that was one moment that led to a lifetime of authenticity was so wonderful, bro. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. That's love, man. Yeah, my heart's just happy hearing that. I mean, it's like, and kind of to point back to the central question too of how can I create the most net value? It's not how can I go get, it's not how can I go acquire, it's not how can I go attain, but how can I create it? And we create it with our choices, like you just said, and like the willingness, the trust, um, to step into a little bit of the unknown, right? Walk down that dark path that's not well lit quite yet. But now look, right? Like you're centered, you're at peace, you just got engaged. I mean, like uh, this is how we do create what happens in our life. It's through those, making those conscious choices. And I mean, we talk about too, like we're little sources of, or we're huge, huge sources of energy walking around, right? And talk about, you were talking about earlier about the things that we get, uh, I think, distracted by is more the external. Um, but yeah, like when we talk about being a person of value, being a man of value, like how do people light up or not when you walk in the room? Do babies reach for you? When you meet a newborn for the first time, does a dog like come up and want to be like your bestie, right? Like that's the type of energy that I, we're working on continuing to put out in the world, and that takes work, right? Like you can fool people with your words, but the bigger source out there, the bigger connection to humanity and life and connection and um all of the things in between, it knows, and right? So it's more so, yeah, like being willing to go in and look within and address some of the things that are blocking that level of energy and that version of yourself that's in there. It's in all of us.
Bro, what you were just saying reminded me that you were talking about peace. And I remember being scared because I was like, but what if I lose this feeling? I attribute peace much to home, much to God.
Hmm.
And you leave your house to go do things. You leave your house to go do things, but it's where you return. So I'm not so worried about like having peace and gripping it so tight. And then I have the risk of losing it at some point because it'll never return. You know where it lies. If you go from your home on journeys, know that you can always return here. Don't need to squeeze and hold this thing so tightly as if it's the only time you're ever going to have it. Peace is attainable. Peace can leave, but it can also return. And that gives me so much more peace now, knowing I don't have to grip this thing so tight as to know that it's the only time I can ever have it in my life. It's always available to me. And should I go seek to wander other places, I can return here, man. And I thank you so much. And I'm so excited for this season. So the audience knows that many of we're going to have guests on this year, absolutely. And me and Jordan have taken a conscious decision to come back to the roots of where we started our practicing people's conversations, and that was with ourselves, with each other, with talking and expanding on life. And I think there are going to be some cool little nuggets if we go back and listen to today, where we'll find real highlights. But it's really cool to be in this place and have. I'm really excited for this season as I get to have the enduring relationship and nature of ourselves sort of be shown to the audience. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, same, man. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you, CJ, for kind of circling us back to that, right? And coming back to our roots of, those conversations that we had post meditating, over the course of a year. I mean, there's nothing, um, how do you explain the unexplainable, right? And like, even you being on the West Coast, me in Denver, you could still feel the connection. Like, I feel like there's probably stuff radiating out of our rooms, you know what I mean? And like, that's, what we'd like to capture a bit more, as we move throughout this season. And because there's some concerning research coming out as far as what men are experiencing, as far as like suicide rates. And um a lot of men are, I think some Pew research I read the other day, like 63% of men under 30 um identified as single, and that's raised from 51% in 2019. Right, so it's a pretty significant jump in just a few years. And the trajectory is that men are not looking to get into relationships. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we've talked about today. There's kind of this uncertainty about who they are and how to navigate the complexity of today. Um, and plenty of other factors, right? Like maybe being misguided in their upbringing. And again, like, no fault to my dad, like your dad. Nothing against dads, nothing against the uncles, nothing against the grandfathers out there. I mean, I truly believe that all of us are out there doing the best with what we know, and that's ultimately where season one was hopefully helpful for people. Is like, there's some other practices that you can start to show yourself. There are other ways of navigating life, in ways that are more aligned. You use that word a few times today, right? And like, get out of the left side of the brain and go into the right side a little bit. um but all of that starts with self leadership, right? Like, back to the choice thing. You got to make a choice that, hey, how life is going right now and how I'm feeling isn't working for me, and I want to do something about it. And again, like, that's a different point in life for every single one of us. But both CJ and I hope to be, that 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 guidepost, or that lighthouse, if you will, for some of the people trying to get to shore and out there in the stormy weathers of life. Like, we get it, and we've navigated it, and continue to have the people that we can connect with. And we just hope that this season can be another lighthouse for people.
And I'll say this to kind of bookend that, Jay, because there's I don't hope it. I say there is a strong sense of knowing, because to know something is definite, but to look to be knowing is to always look to understand and to remain open and curious. And my word to you and to the audience, to Andrew, to our men's group, is to always be in the state of knowing. I want to always be knowing more, and to expand. So there will be expansion in this season, and I am extremely appreciative. Again, on the back end, we have our man Andrew Pike that was with us through all last season. This season, he is our brother. We thank him. His wonderful work goes unseen much of the time, but he's what helps get this thing operating like it does. So there will be a knowing from any and all that are associated with Practicing People's podcast. And we are so excited for the beginning of season 2 and beyond.
Yeah. Much love, bro.
Much love, Jay.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.